And we're confident that we're managed with it. We're as nervous as all of you are. I recognize many of you in the affected areas. Whatever the 2 centimeter rise overnight was wonderful to see this morning. I'm hoping we're only a day or two away from this cresting, and that we don't indeed meet 2013 levels. As individuals and businesses, we've tried to give you as much notification as we can, and many of you have been very proactive for your sake and ours. Thank you very much for that. I got assuredness from the Premier, and they're trying to hook up that I may have a conference call with the Prime Minister today, that after we're through this progress and back to sort of normality, there are some help that we need in our community for mitigation measures. And the municipality's part of it, and we've started some of those things, but the Premier gave me assuredness, and probably at AMO this year, that we'll talk with the ministers, that there are mitigation things that we can do in Minden, and that it seemed reasonable to her that all three levels of government could be involved with that. And that's a discussion for another day, but to let you know that they're aware, and I didn't get any sense this morning that there was ducking or shirking the responsibilities that may be involved with that, so that we don't continue to be in this situation. With 3 water events in 5 years, including 2 declarations, we've had enough. And there are mitigation measures. They're going to take some time. We're going to do it. I would say the day for discussion about the sources of climate change and weird weather are over. It is a reality, as most of us, my neighbors here, know, and we need to make the changes that are required. As a municipality, we're prepared to do our part of it, but it isn't a single tier responsibility, and I'm sure we'll work on that after we get back to some level of normalcy. And I continue to say, go to our Minden Hills website, and all of the notification, as soon as we know, we've tried on a daily basis and sometimes multiple times a day to share that with you, and we'll continue to do that. The other part, for those that aren't directly affected right in the village, that are worried about high water levels, the Trent Severn in Parks Canada has a water level site. Go and look at it. Most of those are automated levels that are real time, and certainly by noon or early afternoon every day, those levels are current. So if you happen to be on one of the lakes above the village of Minden and you're concerned about it, you can see the historical highs and lows. The blues are the actuality of what's happened relative to what the historic highs, and like I say, many of them are far above those levels. I want to say a thank you to Trent Severn, and it may not be so obvious, especially you may not think about this with water pouring in. I can't understate the replacement of the Kinesis Lake Dam that was, when operational in, I believe, February of 2016. It has allowed them to store over 1 meter more water than we've ever seen before. And between Big and Little Kinesis, that's 30% of the water in the 28 lakes. So we have made some strides, and we're not done. And that's my commitment to you as my friends and neighbors, is we will continue this, and we will use this with the provincial and federal governments to continue this, so that this is not becoming a biannual affair. I know my neighbors, the street that I lived on, Anson Street, I haven't been able to get there by vehicle since last week. We don't want to continue this. And certainly, we're not the only communities that are affected. I think of those to the south in Burnt River, who somewhat get affected. They're a smaller community. I see the footage from the city of Peterborough that probably 10 days from now or a week is going to be kind of where we're at now. And I think the responsibility through the whole Trent Severn Canal and Reservoir Lakes, that we need to plan and develop infrastructure that protects those communities that are put in this situation. And because in some senses this is the new norm, and we need to plan and act accordingly. And I guess, is there anything that you would like to say on top of that, Mark? And I would say, after we're done this, I'm willing to answer questions individually after ID mic, whatever, so that as individuals, if you have subsequent questions, I'm happy to stand around here and ask those for me, as well as Mark similarly knows the state of where we're at a minute. And what would you like to say,
I'd
Mark?
just like to add, for those people that the water levels are starting to creep up under their property, if you could please secure your docks, outdoor furniture, as the water levels may rise on some of the lakes still, but those items do not end up in the lake and end up down the river. We're starting to notice some debris coming down the river. So if you can still access your property, please secure your outdoor